This episode is brought to you by Global X. Since 2008, Global X ETFs has been committed to empowering investors with unexplored, intelligent solutions. Global X specializes in exchange-traded funds that offer exposure to the artificial intelligence ecosystem, including themes like data centers, robotics, semiconductors, and cloud computing. To learn more about Global X's entire suite of ETFs, from covered calls, fixed income, emerging markets, and more, visit globalxetfs.com.
Contained herein are the heresies of Radolf Buntwine, erstwhile monk turned traveling medical investigator. Join me as I study the secrets of the divine plagues and uncover the blasphemous truth that ours is not a loving God, and we are not its favored children. The heresies of Radolf Buntwine, wherever podcasts are available.
So first thing to note, as always with Extended Play, we're talking about a game that we've all already played. There are going to be spoilers. If you've not played Uncharted 3 and you don't want to know anything about Uncharted 3, this is going to be spoilerific, so stop listening now. I'm Keza McDonald, UK Games Editor, and joining me is Daniel Krupa.
Hello.
And Alex Simmons.
Hello.
And also Tom Butler.
Hello.
I'm sorry we've been away for a while.
It's been an extended break.
It's been an extended break. As you may have noticed, video games is kind of busy, isn't it, in September and October and November? Quite a lot coming out.
A lot of games come out recently.
A lot of
That's
games
quite good for us, though.
It is good for us, and we've been playing a lot of them. And we've not actually had one game that all of us have played enough to do an extended play on for a while. But
until now,
when we're going to be talking about Uncharted 3 as a one-off special before we launch into. Very good. Can you keep doing that in the background while I talk? It's a one-off special about Uncharted 3 before we launch ourselves into the Elder Scrolls Skyrim from next week onwards.
We definitely plan on making these much more regular in future, so it's not going to be a big hiatus between these podcasts.
So just to remind you what Extended Play was, or if you weren't listening back in August, what we do is we take one game that all of us are playing and we give it a little while, so we give it a couple of weeks after it's come out.
Yeah, and
so
we want basically you to play the game along with us so we can discuss the game after it's come out.
So we'll talk about it because we do reviews obviously on IGN, and we usually talk about stuff a lot before it's out, but then after it's out, the discussion kind of disappears a bit. So that's the idea of Extended Play, is to keep the discussion alive and give you a chance to tell us what you think in depth and in detail about the biggest games that are out. So Uncharted 3 obviously has been out for a little while now, and it was the first game in a while to achieve a coveted 10 out of 10 on IGN, which came from Greg Miller out of our US office.
Certainly did.
What do we all think about that? Are we all fans of Uncharted 3, firstly?
I personally don't think it's a 10 out of 10 game. Having finished all three Uncharteds, the second is the best one, I think. And the third one has some amazing moments, but I think there are some also fundamental flaws in the game.
You're a bigger fan of it, aren't you, Daniel?
I'm a bigger fan of it. I think I was the first person in the office to play it. I kind of completed it over one weekend, and initially I was blown away by it, and I was kind of impressed by its visuals, and it kind of enchanted me. But since then, since I've finished it and I've had a bit of time to think about it, I've kind of reappreciated and reappraised it, and I prefer the second one. And the kind of like the gloss has worn off the third one.
Yeah.
Because I just kind of, it's after Call of Duty came out, and Call of Duty gets derided for doing the same thing time and time again. And as I thought about Uncharted 3, I realised it kind of got a free pass because it does the same thing again as 2 did. It just looks so beautiful. I think it gets a bit of a free
But it
pass.
also does a lot of the same things all the way through.
Yeah.
Like, my God, I am so fed up with Drake just falling down some steps or, just gripping onto something by the last minute. It's like, all right, I get that. You can do that. But it just forces it down.
It just becomes a bit numbing after a while, because I remember playing it before everyone else and said, but what it's like, and I said, it's really good, but it's at 11 constantly.
Yeah.
It's just one big sequence after another. There's no pacing or rhythm to it. It's always high. It's always at 11.
We're joined by Tom Butler,
Hello.
who's not been in for an Extended Play podcast before.
Not yet.
You finished Uncharted 3 recently, didn't you?
Very recently, yeah. And I just don't think it hits the same heights as Uncharted 2.
No.
It doesn't have the set pieces, and a lot of the things that really wowed me in Uncharted 2 seem to be repeated. Like I love the train and the Jeep bits in Uncharted 2. I just think they're sensational.
Yeah.
And yet in this, you get the same, but you get it with like on the horseback.
Yeah, it's slightly different, but yeah, the kind of the
Still
bit where you
jumping from
fall out
car
the
to
back of
car.
the plane
Yeah,
feels very similar to sort of the train thing, and
Yeah.
it's spectacular to look at. But again, your involvement with the game itself is pretty limited.
This is the thing with Uncharted, is it's the
thing.
beautiful illusion.
It's cinematic versus interactive. I
Yeah.
think we've got to the stage now where there are basically two types of game. There's the type of game that essentially play themselves,
Yeah.
and the type of game like Dark Souls where that actually challenge you to do something properly.
Yeah.
And I don't think either of these types is bad. And I really, really, really enjoyed Uncharted 3. I think it's possibly the best example of a cinematic game that exists. at the
Although
moment.
I think the bit that kind of contradicts that is the gunplay, which is far too reliant on gunplay, I think.
Yeah.
Because you shoot 50 dudes and then literally 2 steps up, another 50 come. It's like, all right, I get you.
and they soak up bullets like
They do,
no
don't
other
they?
game.
Other
Oh my
than-
god!
I played a bit of the co-op. Has anyone tried the co-op?
No, not yet.
Very frustrating because it's Uncharted, but with all of the actual cinematic stuff that makes it good taken out, and it's just gunplay.
Right.
And when you play the co-op and the multiplayer, and it's just the gunplay, you actually realise quite how bad that gunplay is. It's just not even a fun game when it's just
No.
the gunplay.
And you know that you've got guys that lob grenades like 100 meters from way in the distance, and they land pinpoint at your feet. It's like it's just impossible every single time as well.
So interestingly, the reason that the gunplay is a bit weird is because they've changed how it works from Uncharted 2.
Mm.
In Uncharted 2, you could be aiming your reticule at a guy, you could be shooting bullets, but the angle that the bullets came out of the barrel at was actually quite random.
Right.
So you could have your reticule over and be shooting a guy in the head and your bullets wouldn't be hitting him.
Yeah.
And because that was very frustrating, they changed it. So in Uncharted 3, whenever you shoot, your reticule just jumps a little bit. You notice that?
Yeah,
Right.
So that's how they've changed it. So now you're always shooting straight, but your reticule dances around, which I think is actually almost worse.
Yeah, it's
Well,
quite
to
taxing.
mirror what recoil or something.
Yeah,
Because
kind
when I
of.
first started playing Uncharted 3, I thought, I'm sure I was better at Uncharted than this.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because in 2 I got pretty good, but I found 3 quite difficult at times.
And there was some bits later on where you're kind of fighting the dudes that sort of set themselves on fire.
yeah.
You know that, right? Like
when you're
really.
The
hallucinating.
self-immolators.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was just so frustrating because you'd be running around looking for ammo, or because you needed either a rocket launcher or grenade launcher to kill those dudes
Yeah.
easily. And then they just disappear from one thing, appear behind you, and kill you with one shot. And it's like, man,
That was one thing
that's
I was-
just not fun.
Quite pleased about towards the end. There wasn't kind of the magical element that's been in the first 2
The
Uncharted
mysticism.
games. Yeah, the
Yeah.
kind of weird mysticism that just seems tacked on in the third act to give it extra legs.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it almost kind of mocks itself because those guys, it's actually Drake hallucinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pleasing. But just to go back to what you were saying, that it's the best example of a cinematic game. It's a lot of games recently, like Bioshock or Deus Ex, they give you a situation and playing the game's kind of improv.
Yeah.
And it lets you go, here's a situation and we want you to improv and you can do it in so many different ways.
Mm.
Whereas Uncharted wants you to do it in one very specific, definite way, and it punishes you if you don't do it that way. And this isn't just name dropping, but a few weeks ago, Duncan Jones was in the office and he was playing Uncharted 3, and he'd never played the series before, and he couldn't play it. He didn't know how to read it. He didn't understand where it wanted him to go,
Mm.
so he just kept dying constantly. He had no idea what he had to do,
Right.
and it's quite
There's
interesting.
no
'cause I
room
think
for
we're all
maneuver.
Yeah.
we're all Uncharted literate.
Yes.
We know that yellow ledge. We want to go there.
Yeah,
the game
yeah,
wants
yeah,
us to
yeah.
jump over there. He had no idea. He was just wanted to shoot these guys in the distance when he actually had to run after the plane.
Yeah.
Right.
So he
right,
kind of
yeah.
brought the game.
It's interesting that. I mean, it does teach you, but it teaches you quite. I think it eases you in quite quickly, doesn't it? Uncharted 3.
Yeah.
We were talking about like how Call of Duty gets a bad rep for funneling you and being a shooting gallery, but Uncharted does exactly the same
It does,
things.
yeah, yeah.
There's like bits where you think maybe you might be exploring, but you drop down into a room where, it's a new place, but which way do you go? Oh, you go to the way where there's a doorway lit up ridiculously much brighter
Yeah.
than everywhere else. That's where you go. And
Yeah.
everywhere you go,
No, it's
that,
weird that
but-
it gets this free pass.
yeah.
That it doesn't get. The
Do you know why I think that is, though? I think it's because, well, at first there's only been 3 of them so far, whereas shooters, it's got to the point where we've had probably 5 or 6 or 7 that have all been roughly the same.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that it's just such a good story, and that's not something Modern
Yeah.
Warfare has ever really been,
And
apart
yeah.
from, I think, the first Modern Warfare 1.
and it is gorgeous as well.
And it's gorgeous.
But
I love this game, I really do.
But
And
one
I
of the
understand
reasons
all
why-
the criticisms.
But one of the
but I
reasons
still
why
love
it is so beautiful is that there's nothing going on behind the scenery.
it. Mm.
They've actually said that Naughty Dog. One of the reasons why it looks so good is they can harness the power of
It's a
the
set.
PlayStation on that set. But if you lift up the curtain, there's nothing behind it. It's not like Skyrim where there's this entire world persisting over the mountain. And because it doesn't have to maintain all those other elements, it can look that good. And it is.
There are
best
some
game I've ever played,
spectacular moments in the game. Like
It's the plane.
The plane is amazing.
Wandering the desert
thought
after the
the
crash.
boat when you go and find Sully and it's all an ambush, and then slowly it starts collapsing, and it's just like.
I really like the characters, and it's one of the only games that I really like the characters.
I think the interplay between Sully and Drake is magnificent. There's bits when I was playing the game, I actually laughed out loud, and I don't laugh out loud.
What was that line you said the other day?
It's where they in the last bit, and the buildings all start crumbling around them, and Sully goes, "This is why we can't have nice things," like that. I just thought that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And it's one of the few games when there's a cutscene, I don't find myself wanting to skip it.
Yeah,
no. It doesn't feel like
I don't feel. I'm actually really interested in
watching
their conversation and their interaction.
I don't feel like I am Drake in the same way as I am other characters.
But I don't mind that.
I don't mind it exactly.
Yeah.
Don't mind it at all. I see Uncharted 3 like an extremely good film.
Yeah.
But I don't see it like a game. I mean, another one of the reasons that we haven't done extended play in a while is because of my Dark Souls month.
Yeah,
I spent reviewing that. Yeah, I didn't play anything else apart from Dark Souls for ages. And when you play a game like that, playing other games is actually really difficult. So I came to Uncharted 3 kind of being used to being clubbed over the head every 5 seconds and stabbed and pushed off ledges and clawed and poisoned and so on and so forth, cursed. And then Uncharted 3 was just such a relief after all that, just having this lovely, entertaining game that just wanted me to have loads of fun. You know, I found it a really great kind of contrast.
Yeah, a few weeks ago I wrote a piece comparing the Indiana Jones movies to the Uncharted games, and it's kind of the Indiana Jones movies are great movies, but you can never really remember the intricacies of the plot. It's all about the device that kind of precipitates the adventure. You can't remember who that person is. I kind of see the Uncharted games very much that way.
Yeah,
I couldn't give you a synopsis of the Uncharted games.
A lot of things fall down.
Sequences.
Many things fall down.
I remember the action sequences.
A train falls down, a plane falls down.
That's the thing. I can't actually remember what was it Drake's ring they were looking for?
Yeah.
After all that, that's literally that second just come back.
Yeah,
to
it's
me.
It's Catherine Marlowe, but I can't remember really why or what it led to. It just and there's a bit it takes them to the desert, and it's just all these action sequences, like the great blockbuster action movies, kind of dovetail into one another. And that's the great thing about it. You never stop to question why that doesn't maybe work out.
I think even with the scene where you see obviously Drake as a kid, it really felt like Indiana Jones movie then, like Last Crusade.
Yeah,
it really felt like that, and and I thought it worked really, really. Don't get me wrong, I thought it worked really well in the game, but you can just see where it gets its cues from.
So, in my opinion, this is the best example of this type of game. Are there other ones that you think? Do you think it's Uncharted 2?
I prefer Uncharted 2 to Uncharted 3. I thought there was far too much reliance on gunplay in this one, and also while some of the levels were amazing, like the ship ghost yard bit where you had to go around was amazing for a bit, but then my God, it just went on and on and on, and I just thought it would have benefited from some of the bits being slashed in half and some of the battles being tightened.
It needs choice. It needs more choice within it to make it an absolutely magnificent game. Like all games are all about choice nowadays. They say you can choose to do this and choose to do that. It just hasn't got it. I think it'd be nice to approach something, because some of them it's like, oh, you should be stealthy here and try and take them out. But it always gets to that point where shit.
It all kicks off.
The bit in where there's all the rusted ships and Drake drops down and you can swim and pull people down. You can do that for a couple of guys, and then you get spotted quite easily.
And it never reverts back to the stealth, because it'd be good if you could hide like Deus Ex and it would revert back, but it never does that.
Even when you die and you respawn, it goes straight back to them knowing exactly where you are, and you're straight back in the thick of it. You don't get the chance to reset the stealth.
Don't you think that goes to opposite? Like if you play an Uncharted game, then isn't that just not what you should be expecting?
No, that's true.
But do you know what? It's the same with Call of Duty. Sometimes a change of pace really makes a difference.
Because they have nice stealthy levels sometimes, nice quiet levels,
and that's what the problem with Modern Warfare 2 is that it didn't. It was just the same tempo all the way through. Exactly. Like punching yourself in the balls till you finish the game, and that's it. No stroking.
No stroking or licking of the balls.
Exactly.
Only punching.
And I think it was the same when you go straight into the boat. You walk into the kind of ballroom and you can get past the guys stealthily. But again, I think I managed to get 3 or 4 guys trying to stealthily, and then you get spotted, and it's just
I think
all shit kicks off.
I think the boat's a great illustration where I think Uncharted, the guys behind Uncharted, the writers, they will think up sequences first, and then they'll construct the plot around the sequences. Because I think they'll write sequences on like postcards and then put them on the wall and go, that one can go there.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got this really cool idea for a boat.
Yeah.
How can we get Drake on the boat? Well, what if Marlo knows a pirate? And if you stop to think about it, why did she give him to a pirate?
Yeah.
And that always ends up being a red herring as well, doesn't it? Being there.
Yeah. It's just that's complete digression, that whole bit at sea.
It's interesting though, because this year has been a very good year for cinematic and interactive games. Like we've had Skyrim, Deus Ex, Dark Souls, three of the most kind of choicey, gameplay orientated games that I've seen in years.
Yeah.
And then we've had Modern Warfare 3, Uncharted, and Batman, which are three of the best cinematic games I've ever seen. So I think it's really interesting that we've got now this clear difference between the types of game that there are to buy and the types of enjoyment that they give you, and I'm kind of all for that. But I'm interested that you say that Uncharted 2 is the revolutionary one, because that's something I've heard from a lot of people.
It's only because Uncharted 3 feels like a carbon copy of Uncharted 2. And there was a marked difference between Uncharted 1 and 2. Yeah, that felt like a progression, but it just feels like more of the
Uncharted 1 was great ideas-wise, but a bit shonky, basically, wasn't it? Whereas Uncharted 2 was just... I think it was the first proper gaming blockbuster.
It felt like they'd perfected the technique. Yeah. And now they've kind of done the same and made a few changes, but not necessarily for the better.
See, it was interesting. Uncharted 3 was one of the games I brought out because my aunt and uncle came around for dinner. Yeah. They're in their 60s. And I showed them some games sometimes just to show them what I do, because I don't really know what I do. So I kind of brought out Uncharted 3. And we were wandering through the desert after the crash.
Yeah.
And my aunt's like, so what happens if you go in the other direction?
Yeah.
Like, what happens does he have to find the water? And I'm like, yeah, he kind of does have to do, like, there's not really any option apart from what I'm doing. And it did kind of highlight that to me, because I've shown her games like Oblivion before. And
where you can go
in and she'd be like, what's over there? What happens if you go over there? What if you talk to that guy? Can you kill him? And you do. You're like, now the guards have got me. She's like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Uncharted 3, she wasn't very impressed by, which I thought was interesting, because I would assume that was quite an accessible game for someone who wasn't all that into games.
But I wonder what does happen if you walk in the other direction in the desert. Do you ultimately just end up at the same invisible wall?
It puts you back at the beginning of the bit.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. And there's a bit when you're walking, you know the bit where it's like really zoomed out and he's walking along the dune?
Yeah.
He can't walk backwards.
Right.
Like you pull backwards and he just kind of stumbles.
Right.
I wanted to walk down the dune at that point. That's what I thought I wanted to do.
Really
you just get right
bit.
to the edge and push the sand down.
When it starts quoting T.S. Eliot, when you're wandering through the desert, like go under the shadow of the red rock.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's a very weird sequence.
I quite liked that though, because I thought it was subtle. It wasn't usually when games make allusions like that, they're like, nah, we're really smart. Look at this. It's from this. It's from this book. Yeah. Whereas there, it was just kind of dropped in there, and it fitted.
And thematically, and it was appropriate. He was going under a red rock.
I imagine Drake would read.
Very literally.
Yeah.
I imagine Drake would have read T.S. Eliot as well.
Yeah, on his travels. Do you think they bottled it, not killing Sully?
Yeah.
I thought that was going to happen all the way, because the beginning of the game was focused on how they met.
Yeah.
So it seemed right that he would die in the third act.
It felt like there was that final twist coming where it wasn't Sully that he'd been talking to, it was the other guy, because he pops out and you think, oh, well, it's
I
Sully.
really thought it was gonna happen.
And then he just appears and it never really explains how. It kind of says you were hallucinating.
Yeah, I thought the way he came back was a bit shonky.
And I thought there was another twist
when he came
coming.
Out, I just thought, this isn't Sully. I don't trust this guy whatsoever.
Yeah.
This is the hallucination.
Yeah.
But I thought they bottled that. I thought that would have been quite a memorable ending, and then that's a lot to deal with in the fourth game, which is coming.
Have they got the bravery to do that, though, do you reckon?
They should, though. Otherwise, every game will be just kind of cut and paste with different sequences and different settings.
It'll be a moment you'll remember.
It could have been a nice way to go for Drake to become the mentor and him take on
because he needs to grow up. That would be character progression. He's not. He's still that kind of.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Carefree guy.
Character. Much as I love the characters in Uncharted, and much as I think as their writing is much better than most characters in video games, there's no progression, is there? No. He's always the same guy.
What I quite liked in Uncharted 3 is Elena wasn't there for most of the game, and then when she came back, it didn't do that really crass exposition where, oh, we broke up. It's just all hinted at that they were engaged and something happened, and you fill in the blanks.
That's cool, isn't it?
It's not really terrible, weak writing where it's like, here you go, this is what happened in between, or it's a flashback or something.
Yeah.
I thought that was really smart and well done.
Yeah. I thought the London level was really, really good as well.
Really well realised, I think, vision of London. We don't see it enough in video games.
Also the bit where you have no inkling that it's all a setup until it kind of happens, and it's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And the bit where you can see the London skyline. It's very
Yeah,
well
it's
detailed.
lovely.
I was playing that at home, and my girlfriend was just sat next to me, and she'd been reading or something. It was at that point, and she looked up and she was like, "Wow, that's pretty cool."
Yeah.
And I just have a good look round, and a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
So, what are the scenes, the absolute kind of defining scenes of Uncharted 3?
Well, the whole desert bit is amazing,
and the plane crash, because that's what we played on preview code.
But that's what I mean. You know, from the moment you get in the plane and then go through the plane and fall out of the plane, and then that whole sequence.
The bit where you
is
fall out of the plane
amazing.
and have to grab onto the box. That is cool.
I had my heart in my mouth when that was happening.
Yeah.
But I personally liked all the boatyard stuff, because I thought that was really different to everything else, and how when you came out of the boatyard and you had to go traverse across, and everything was moving and everything was...
It looked incredible. I just felt like it went on for a little bit long.
Yeah.
That's all.
But for me, that was the bit where I was like, wow, this is something different to what's been done before.
And that was the one point where the navigation in the game is pretty good, but that was the one bit where I was literally in the middle of it going, I have no idea where I need to go.
I think all that stuff in the middle of the game in the Middle East is quite forgettable, where you're going into tombs and caverns. Is it in Iran or Syria?
I've forgotten it.
That middle bit
That's
is
how memorable it is.
I think it's Syria.
Syria.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And but at the end, contrary to that, if they're the memorable scenes, what I was speaking to Tom about this the other day, what's quite forgettable is Uncharted does that thing when they go into Shambhala in the second one, where they're in the snowy mountainous region, and then it opens up into this lush jungle city underground.
Yeah.
Uncharted 3 does a similar thing where it's in the middle of the desert, and you again have this lush city, and it just again that's such a retread of Uncharted 2, whereas the last bit you have this dramatically different environment.
And it felt like that was quite... I seem to remember playing through Uncharted 2, and at that point it just breathing life into this final act. And I just don't think it happened in this.
It never kind of escalates up. And
it doesn't. You have bits where the buildings are collapsing and you're trying to escape and you have to fight the firemen, but it just never really grabs you and made all that difference in that final act. And I've heard a lot of complaints that people saying that the ending is disappointing.
Yeah,
I'm glad that it departed from the kind of big boss fight that 1 and 2 had at the end. Like the guy, was he Croatian in the second one? Like the big brute, hulking terrorist.
Yeah, I can't remember.
And you had to it was a very, very standard boss fight where you just had to chase him around, throw grenades at him, hit him 3 times or whatever.
But this fight with, again, I can't remember the guy who you're fighting, but it's
Milo's henchman. Yeah, but I almost prefer that, even though it was the knife fight.
Yeah.
That felt more cinematic, which is in keeping with Uncharted, than at the last minute it drops this very anachronistic boss fight where you're just lobbing grenades at a guy from a distance.
Yeah.
Which is something we talked about with Deus Ex.
Yeah,
where the game moves on in other directions, and yet once it gets to that climactic moment, the game goes, we don't know what to do yet, let's fall back on what we've done for 30 years.
Yeah. Quite, yeah. Well, we know where that was now, of course.
Yeah.
With Eidos having admitted that they outsourced the boss fights for Deus Ex, and that's why they didn't fit. And incidentally, I can't remember, I'm sorry if I've said this before in one of the podcasts, but if you want to see what the Deus Ex boss fights could have been like, download the DLC, the Missing Link DLC, because the boss fight at the end of that's what it should have been like.
Right.
Lots and lots of options. You can stealth it, you can hack it, there's loads of cool things you can do. And it's kind of sad because it just makes you think, they could have done that for all of them. But there you go. So where can Uncharted go from here? What do we want from Uncharted 4? Do we even want an Uncharted 4?
Well, Naughty Dog have said that they're already doing that.
Yes, of course they have.
Of course they are. And we're going to get an Uncharted title not made by Naughty Dog, but for the Vita.
Indeed.
So we're going to get just have too much.
To be honest, the Vita for me kind of is the negative extreme of the plays it for you thing, where you just swipe your finger and he goes whoa and climbs up a thing. You just swipe.
You can point where he's going.
Yeah, you just go there and he just does it. Yeah,
I do quite like that though. Again, if you want to kind of broaden up your game, then that's a nice way of doing it. Because I just think
it is cool.
You can play it in a traditional way. It's no different from the kind of whatever it was called, the dad pad mode in FIFA, which basically you've got one button to do everything. Yeah. And I quite like that.
Nobody told me about that. That would have made me so much better at FIFA.
The dad slash.
But it kind of fills in the gaps for you, and I quite like the fact that they're doing that. You don't have to play it that way, but it's in there, and I think that's quite a smart way of doing it. But I just think
that's a very good point.
Just something different.
I suppose the 3 pillars of Uncharted are sort of the climbing set pieces, there's the gunplay, and there's kind of puzzle solving. And I feel like the big action set pieces
I think it's climbing, shooting, watching.
Developed quite a lot. I just think puzzle solving was very minor in this. I know the puzzles are very basic anyway, but I remember them
There's a big one with the mirrors in the second one, which always stands out for me as being very sort of Tomb Raider-esque, and there wasn't that moment.
Well, later on in this
thing.
one, you just remember in this one, you just climb up some nights and you flick a switch and that's it. And it opens the doors.
See, I'm actually more excited about the new Tomb Raider than I was about Uncharted. And although I'd loved Uncharted 3, and it was a surprise for me because although I liked Uncharted 1 and 2, they're not the kind of game I usually really engage with. And I think that having been so deep into Dark Souls was a big reason why I enjoyed Uncharted 3. But I'm very excited about the new Tomb Raider because the one thing that I really missed in Uncharted, all of the Uncharted, is puzzles.
Yeah.
Proper puzzles, like, moving around big stone balls and putting artifacts into a key, all this stuff. And that's very, very Tomb Raider-y. And that's why I still... I love Tomb Raider Legend, even though some people didn't.
Yeah.
And I think those are the two. It's Lara Croft and Nathan Drake, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Essentially, they should so get married. They'd had such beautiful adventurous children.
Yeah.
That would be so awesome. Think of the adventurous kids they would have.
If she was one of his old flames.
Wow.
Or vice versa.
Oh, that would be great. So that's what I want from Uncharted 4. In conclusion.
Lara Croft.
Yes.
Just something a little bit different. A little bit of innovation. That's all I'd like.
Yeah, we don't want it to get stale now.
Ease off the gas on the gun.
Because I think those big set pieces are much more impactful when they're not bookend by equally big set pieces.
Yeah.
So that's what we think of Uncharted 3. But as always with extended play, what's important to us is what you think of it. So please send us your feedback to extendedplay@ign.com. This is a one-off special, so we will be doing some discussion of the feedback. But as of next week, we're going to be moving on to The Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Even Alex has agreed to play The Elder Scrolls.
I have played it.
He's played some, which is an amazing achievement because he was so uninterested. So we're going to have me. I'm a huge Bethesda fan person. We're going to have Daniel, who's somewhere in the middle. A convert. Yeah. And we're going to have Alex, who still hasn't quite got it yet.
The cynic.
But we shall see by next week. So please send us your feedback to extendedplay@ign.com.
And if you love Uncharted, let us know. If you hate Uncharted, let us know. It'd be good to share your thoughts.
Yes, and we'll be discussing them on the next episodes. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm Amy Nicholson, the film critic for the LA Times.
And I'm Paul Scheer, an actor, writer, and director. You might know me from The League, Veep, or my non-eligible for Academy Award role in Twisters.
We love movies, and we come at them from different perspectives.
Yeah, like Amy thinks that, Joe Pesci was miscast in Goodfellas, and I don't.
He's too old. Let's not forget that Paul thinks that Dune 2 is overrated.
It is.
Anyway, despite this, we come together to host Unspooled, a podcast where we talk about good movies, critical hits,
fan favorites, must-sees, and in case you missed them.
We're talking Parasite to Home Alone.
From Grease to The Dark Knight.
We've done deep dives on popcorn flicks. We've talked about why Independence Day deserves a second look.
And we've talked about horror movies, some that you've never even heard of, like Ganja and Hess.
So if you love movies like we do, come along on our cinematic adventure.
Listen to Unspooled wherever you get your podcasts.
And don't forget to hit the follow button.
Hi, this is Rob Benedict.
And I am Richard Spate. We were both on a little show you might know called Supernatural.
It had a pretty good run, 15 seasons, 327 episodes.
And though we have seen, of course, every episode many times, we figured, hey, now that we're wrapped, let's watch it all again.
And we can't do that alone, so we're inviting the cast and crew that made the show along for the ride. We've got writers, producers, composers, directors, and we'll of course have some actors on as well, including some certain guys that played some certain pretty iconic brothers.
It was kind of a little bit of a left field choice in the best way possible.
The note from Kripke was, he's great, we love him, but we're looking for like a really intelligent Duchovny type.
With 15 seasons to explore, it's going to be the road trip of several lifetimes. So please join us and subscribe to Supernatural then and now.